Hello, everyone, and welcome to the City Council Forum for Culture and Arts for City Council Districts 11, 14, 16, and 18 in the Bronx. We know that there's a lot going on and there's a lot to navigate, so we really appreciate you allocating one of your most valuable resources to be here with us today, which is your time. I am Melanie Green. I am an artist and director of programs at New Yorkers for Culture and Arts, and we are a cultural advocacy organization working to ensure a vibrant future for culture and arts for all New Yorkers. I'm coming to you from the former Choctaw and Chickamauga land. I'm a Black woman with curly hair cascading from the crown of my head. I'm wearing a flower dress and I have a white background. I use she, her pronouns. So tonight we have the pleasure of having ASL interpretation as well as closed captioning if you are within the Zoom platform. So if you are within Zoom, you can look at the CC button at the bottom of the frame to access that feature if you would like. The chat is open and we welcome questions, suggestions for the candidates, as well as just having conversations with each other. It's also open in the YouTube live stream platform. Hello, YouTube folks. We just ask that you do not involve yourself in any kind of hate speech in the chat. Positive vibes only. We got enough going on, right? So I want to thank the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts team, who has done an amazing job in organizing the efforts for this evening, including Lori Berg, Lucy Sexton, Tara Sheena, Regine Peters, and just all of our participating organization and our partners who are on this event. They will be listed in the chat. So this evening, we have moderation provided by Amira Mustafa. She is the founder and executive director of Art Defined Productions, and Brian Glover, who is the deputy director of grants and programs at the Bronx Council on the Arts. Tongue twister. So we are so excited to have them here with us today. Before we get started, I know you're excited to hear from the candidates. Just want to remind you that we have several other candidate forums coming up this month, as well as we've done several last month. So we will also put that link in the chat if you would like to view some of our previous forums to hear what council members are saying, the candidates are saying in other districts. Now, without further ado, I want to welcome Amira and Brian, and I will pass the mic. Welcome.
Thank you, Melanie. So hello and welcome to the City Council Forum for Bronx Districts 11, 14, 16, and 18 on Culture and Arts, hosted by New Yorkers for Arts and Culture in partnership with the Bronx Community Foundation. My name is Brian Glover and I'm thrilled to be here with Amir Mustafa. We're going to begin with an accessibility check-in to give you a brief visual description. I'm a Black male wearing an orange polo type shirt. Behind my right shoulder is a bookcase with a multicolored painting on top. And my pronouns are he and him. I also want to acknowledge that I'm currently on Muncie Lenape territory.
I am a Black female with a pink flowery shirt on, white blurred out background, and I'm Amira, by the way. Is that? I think that's it. So thanks, Brian. The COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately impacted the cultural organizations, cultural workers, and artists. Prior to COVID-19's pandemic, the arts and culture sector generated $110 billion in economic activity in New York City with a workforce of 300,000. For the city to bounce back, it needs a strong cultural sector. And today, we're excited to hear from the Bronx City Council candidates about their views on the arts and culture in our city.
This evening, we will ask candidates questions from the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts candidate questionnaire. We invite each candidate to take 30 seconds to provide a visual description. And then after their visual descriptions, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to a question. If time allows, we will do a follow-up question with each candidate.
If you'd like to know more about the candidates, respond to the questionnaire that will be posted on the New Yorkers for Culture and Arts website. The URL will be posted in the chat.
Remember, the chat is open, so we encourage candidates to converse with guests. While we cannot promise to get to every question posted in the chat, we encourage the discussion and we'll be monitoring it both on Zoom and on YouTube.
Please be respectful with all the comments you post. We also want to let you know that the order of the candidates and the questions they will be asked have been chosen at random to ensure fairness. Okay, so let's get started.
All right, thank you, Amira. I believe first up is Althea Stevens. Are you here, Althea?
I'm here. It's not letting me undo my video.
Okay. We'll fix that momentarily. Hello, Althea.
Hello.
Now, do you want to take about 30 seconds just to give us introduction to pronouns and the visual description?
Hello, everybody. My name is Althea Stevens. I am a Black woman with a short bob, sitting in my living room with a striped, colorful shirt on and some really dope silver glasses.
Love those glasses. Thank you.
Okay.
So question, as of March 2021, just 4% of shuttered creative businesses had returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the Shuttered Venue Operators Grants will only help an estimated 10% of the creative economy. Micro businesses, that is sole proprietor artists and small artist-led organizations, are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates $110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing back people to downtown Manhattan after 9/11. What do you foresee as the role of creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging, immigrant, and working class communities of color? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I believe that we need to get creatives back into providing spaces for artists. And I also think that with the warm weather and the spring and everything coming up, we need to really take advantage of really providing space for artists to have this opportunity to be out amongst folks making money, and really opening up the cultural program that allows and allow non-affiliated DLA and borough arts cultural programs to really be able to come out and provide programs to folks. I think that it's going to be essential that we have artists being a part of this recovery process and really in the forefront, because artists often are the ones who are bringing very innovative ideas and looking at things in a different way. So I think that we have to put them in a space to be a part of this recovery, also making sure that we're putting them in other places that they might not normally be in, thinking about how are we putting them back into like the financial sector and nonprofit executives and things like that, because the reality is a lot of times artists look at things from a very different lens. And I think we really need to bring them into the fold and having them be a part of so many different things within our city as we think about this recovery.
Thank you. Thank you, Althea. So I believe next up we have Amanda Farias. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
You want to take 30 seconds to give us an intro and visual description?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Farias, candidate for City Council District 18, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm a white Latina with Black hair, a white shirt on, sitting in my living room.
Thank you. So, question. Healthcare is a pressing issue for individual artists, cultural workers, and small cultural groups without resources for major coverage plans. This impacts disabled artists, workers, and organizations enormously. In addition, many people are experiencing difficulties after suffering with COVID. And in communities hardest hit by COVID, such as those here in the Bronx, health outlets are closing. There's been many recent closures around the whole city. What is your plan to address the healthcare needs of the city's many communities?
This is a great question, and thank you for asking it. I have a citywide solution that could transform healthcare access in the 5 boroughs. I believe that expanding funding for New York Health and hospitals by establishing a healthcare tax could ensure all are able to access a healthcare system that works for them, and has the potential of alleviating increased costs passed on to their participants, onto labor organizations and employers. By making New York City Cares a universal healthcare system for New Yorkers, we can maintain quality services while expanding to underserved communities like those in this city, and particularly here in the Bronx.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, I believe we have Yves Phileas. Are you here, Yves?
Yes, I am.
Hello, Yves. Do you want to take 30 seconds to give us an intro, pronouns, and visual description?
Sure. I am Yves Phileas, a Black male wearing, I would say, bang locks / twist. Also wearing a white button-up shirt with a blue blazer, sitting in my campaign office in the Boogie Down Bronx, in front of a white wall, and behind me are 2 posters of myself.
Great, thank you. So Yves, in the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close, and much of the sector will be the last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and cultural workers remain unemployed. This in a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. What is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in its hardest hit sectors? What kind of workforce development programs do you envision that would provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities?
All right, thank you so much for that great question. The arts is something that's near and dear to my heart. I am actually a board member of Friends of Crotona Park. I grew up in front of Crotona Park in the district. So interacting with hip hop artists every summer for the hip hop concerts is something that's near and dear to my heart. We need to employ, because my community, in fact, is the birthplace of hip hop. We have Hip Hop Boulevard, and not only that, we have the Andrew Friedman Home, which houses and employs artists all around the world. That if they live in the home and in return provide arts and programs, then that is the reward. And I would like to implement a barter system with artists that come within our system and partner up with our Department of Buildings to encourage those that want to come here and implement a fingerprint within our community. And for those that are physically handicapped, and over ADA compliant, we and our communities, we need to ensure that they have the appropriate resources and avenues to attain and sustain a better living, a livable wage for them in our communities. We have the Bronx Economic Employment Center. I would like to empower them and to continue to push our neighbors to get better licensing, whether it be being a barber or a beautician, to getting their electrical license and such. So just implementing those programs and keeping them sustained.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yves. So with that, we are going to, we finished asking our initial questions for District 16-18. We're going to take a 12-minute break and then come back and ask questions for Districts 11 and 14. Thank you, everyone. Take a 12-minute break.
brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on my sisters, rock on, rock until the early morning, rock because you know it's on, rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. You let me have a taste. I let you have a bite. I'm cool whatever happens tonight. You can stay or walk away, or let the DJ play and take you away. One dance is okay.
I'm glad. I'm all right.
Two dances, alright. On. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. Rock on my brothers, rock on. Rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. I think I'm in the zone. I work it to the bone. Don't leave me out here dancing alone. If you feel it's your time to shine, jump into the party line. One dance is okay with me. Two dances alright. Three dances makes the party. Who gon' bring the fire tonight? Rock on my brothers, rock on. Rock on my sisters, rock on.
Hello. So it seems like we have a little bit of extra time here. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask follow-up questions for these candidates who are still with us while we still have them here. And so what we will do is I'm going to ask the question and then give each candidate a chance to answer the question. And so the question is, and this will be for Eves, Althea, and Amanda, I believe. That's who we've heard from already. The University of Pennsylvania's Social Impact of Arts Project report from 2017 shows neighborhoods with vibrant cultural assets see an increase in stronger community and civic engagement, better health, schooling, personal security, and economic revitalization. In the wake of all the injustices that have come to bear in the past year, George Floyd's murder, the exponential rise in violence against API community, disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on BIPOC communities, how would you address the security and protection of cultural assets in communities of color, many of whom were struggling to survive before the pandemic? And we will go back up to the top and start with Althea. Hello.
Hi. So one of the things I think that is really important is, last year when we had all the uprisings in our communities, it was really empowering to see that was being led by young people and getting them involved to be a part of this. And I think that we have to get to a place where we are keeping young people in the community engaged at all costs and not only just being reactionary and making this a way of life. I think that it's important that we continue to have people speak out, and when things they feel is not correct in their community. And so one of the things that I think that we need to make sure that we're always doing, especially in elected position, is having city council people help and support and create space for this to happen. I think that is an important job and responsibility of electeds to make sure that we are cultivating space and cultivating the next group of leaders to really lead us into what we need to get done. And for me, I've been in youth development for over 20 years. So making sure that we're building a bench, educating and feeding young people and feeding the knowledge to young people in the next generation of leaders is something that I think is very important. And I think that is just in all aspects, and making sure that they're part of every situation. I say it all the time that it is my job to invoke and uplift and support young people in everything that I do. And I think that that's one of the ways that we have to continue to do that work. And that is something that I would definitely be looking forward to in City Council, to make sure that we are continuing to cultivate leaders in our community and in our culture, and making sure that they're leading and ready to take the reins when we are done.
Thank you so much, Othea. Amanda?
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, so I think this is a great question, and I really want to echo everything Althea has said. You know, I think investing in public education is really the key, or one of the key answers to this. You know, creating community schools that become community centers where our culture, community culture, our diversity from our communities really can be elevated and expanded across the community and across our city, to bring those resources to students with a strong arts education program is really critical for that. Cultural industries like our museums, like heritage locations and events, performing arts, all play a role in maintaining a cultural identity, and sharing that identity with others through tourism programs in our community, through helping nonprofit organizations and local organizations, through like city council funding and programming, can really help create an emphasis on that cultural significance that we want to be maintained here and keep here and thrive in our communities. And that has the potential, I think, to really bring humanity together in a way that our increasingly divisive world really desperately needs.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Eves. Oh, you went back on mute. I heard you for a second, Eves.
All right.
Hi.
So I believe in a term I call retrofrying, which means retrofitting our infrastructure while rectifying all the past ills that have been imposed on our people. You know, so from last year, we've learned that, you know, enough is enough. We, as people of color, have had our knee, the relative knee on our back for far too long, and it's time to change. And how of changing is creating a new narrative. That means changing names of infrastructures that have been a part of our community, that have been from people that have not had their best perspectives on us as people from years ago. That's one way, you know, encouraging our students and giving them accountability, teaching them what their rights are as students, giving them a student's bill of rights. So when they know when they walk through a school door, what rights they have as an individual, encouraging them on the civic end to join their local community boards, because how are we the youngest borough, but yet our community boards do not reflect the community it represents. So having young folks that look like us, you know, being on the community board, encouraging them, and then giving the resources in our district, the necessary resources that they can be to sustain. There shouldn't be a reason why our parks aren't fully funded in the district that needs it. You know, like we have to add the environmental justice with all justice.
Thank you so much, Eve. Thank you so much. So we appreciate our candidates taking those follow-ups. We are now going to actually take an official 5-minute break, and then we're going to shift to candidates in districts 11 and 14. So thank you all so much. Stay around for the end. We might have some follow-ups later if you can stay with us. But right now we'll go to a 5-minute break.
brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on my sisters, rock on, rock until the early morning, rock because you know it's on, rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. You let me have a taste. I let you have a bite. I'm cool, whatever happens tonight. You can stay or walk away, or let the DJ play and take you away. One dance is okay with me. Two dances, alright. Three dances makes the party. Who gon' bring the fire tonight? Rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. Rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. I think I'm in the zone. I work it to the bone. Don't leave me out here dancing alone. If you feel it's your time to shine, jump into the party line. One dance is okay with me. Two dances, alright. Three dances makes the party. Who gon' bring the fire tonight? Rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. Rock on, rock on, rock on, rock on. If you feel it's your time, bring the fire, take it higher. Rock on, rock on, rock on, rock on. My peoples, no matter what is going on, you stay strong and you rock on. 'Cause you know we rock on, and you know we rock on. If you feel it's your time, who gon' bring the fire? Who gon' bring the fire? Rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. Rock on my brothers, rock on my sisters, rock on. Rock until the early morning. Rock because you know it's on. You let me have a taste, I let you have a bite. I'm cool, whatever happens tonight. You can stay or walk away, or let the DJ play and take you away.
Hello, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your break, your 5-minute break. All right, the first person will be Mino Laura. I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
Yes.
Perfect. Can you give us a 30-second description, a little snapshot of you right now?
Hi, everyone. I have short curly hair, long dangly earrings and red lipstick, and a jean jacket with a striped shirt underneath. I have hazel eyes and light brown beige skin.
Perfect. Okay, so educational programs for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated populations that include sustained arts programs has led to improvements in managing emotional states, building confidence and communication skills, and increasing civic engagement. What are your plans on supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New Yorkers?
Thank you for the question. So just to give a bit of context, I started a theater and social justice organization. I am an artist running for office. So cultural justice is at the center, I believe, of our recovery. And I also believe that arts is a human right and should be accessible to all communities, absolutely, including our incarcerated New Yorkers. In speaking of how will I serve incarcerated New Yorkers as councilwoman, first, we need to make sure that we're decreasing jail cells. We need to make sure that we are investing in restorative justice program, rehabilitation programs. We need to end the school to prison pipeline. So there are less people in jails. As we look to close Rikers, the solution is not to build more jails. But while we have, with the New Yorkers that are incarcerated, they deserve to live with dignity and safety. We have seen through COVID how they are they've been in unsafe conditions. And as we think about our recovery, COVID is still here. As we get better, we can't be forgetting about our communities most marginalized. Arts will be healing. So one of the things I have in my platforms is having a creative corpse, right? Making sure that we are hiring artists and teaching artists and organizations serving our Black and Brown communities, our immigrant communities, and our incarcerated populations to be dealing with this trauma. Art not only will be building up our economy, but will help us heal as New Yorkers. And it needs to be centered in our recovery, the social emotional health of our young people, of our incarcerated communities as we come out of this, as we move forward. So these are some of the things that I will be focused on.
Great, thank you. So the next person is Abigail Martin. Are you here?
I'm here, but it's not letting me take off my camera. Okay, there we go. I was trying to take it off and somebody had to let me know.
Great.
Okay.
So can you take 30 seconds to give a brief snapshot, a picture of where you're at right now and who you are?
Sure. Brief snapshot of where I am. I am in my office surrounded by my children's artwork or quote unquote office, which is really just a corner, right? I'm surrounded by my children's artwork. I have light skin, brown hair that's pulled back. It's straight. I'm also wearing red lipstick and I have small hoop earrings in and a magenta colored blazer. I'm wearing a magenta colored blazer.
Perfect, thank you. In the COVID crisis, arts and culture were the first to close and much of the sectors will be the last to reopen at full capacity. More than 50% of artists and culture workers remain unemployed. This is a sector where workers are 3.6 times more likely to be self-employed, freelancers, gig workers, and mixed income earners. What is your plan for getting the city back to work, particularly in its hardest hit sectors? What kind of workforce development programs do you envision that would provide access to communities of color and people with disabilities?
Let's start with vaccines. We need to get the city vaccinated. I think we've done a pretty good job, but in the Bronx, we're still less than 50%. If we're gonna stay open, remain open. We need to get more people vaccinated. That's why I'm pleased to report that I partnered with a fellow social worker in a neighboring council district to bring a vaccine pop-up to the community of Wakefield, which is taking place tomorrow. That's very exciting. But then in addition to getting people vaccinated, we need to support, oh, sorry, I keep looking at you and not the camera. We need to support small businesses. Small businesses are the fabric of our community. They make up 50% of the private workforce. We need to ensure that the relief money that is coming to them gets to the businesses that need it the most. We need to ensure that everybody in this city has an affordable place to live. We have to address this housing crisis, and we have to address it sooner rather than later. We also have to ensure that our future generation, our future artists, are receiving an equitable and high quality education, and arts is a big part of that. So those are the things that we should focus on as we open up. And then in terms of gig economy and gig workers, we need more support for gig workers. We need to ensure that they're able to get benefits. I'm supportive of them unionizing, but we absolutely need to support this gig economy. And you know, something that was announced today, which is so excited, is the Artist Corps, right? Where there's going to be $25 million now for this summer to employ over 1,500 artists in the city. That's really exciting. I'd love to see that fully support that program.
Great, thank you. So next is Dan Paternak. Dan?
Hey guys.
Hey.
Trying to start my video. Hey there.
Can you take 30 seconds to give a short description of who you are, where you're at?
Absolutely. So my name is Dan Paternak. My pronouns are he, him. I am in a bedroom of my Bronx apartment, which I've converted into a little bit of a home office here. To the right of me is a Kennedy poster. On the left is a Reform Albany poster, and I've got some pictures of family members behind me. I've got short brown hair. I'd probably say more of a paler reflection. I have hazel eyes. I'm 5'9" and have an athletic build. I think that's probably a good physical description of me.
Cool. All right. The city has a qualified legion of teaching artists, totaling over 4,500 educators.
Mm-hmm.
Yet 67% of the New York City principals stated that funding for the arts is generally insufficient. Currently, New York City does not meet state mandates for arts in every public school. Yet arts education in schools have been shown to improve academic and social emotional outcomes for students, especially when provided as an integrated part of the curriculum. What is your plans for the city school system, and what is your vision of the role that arts in education plays?
Yes.
Okay.
So arts and education is extremely important to me. I went to PS 95 here in the Bronx, and when I went to grammar school, arts was a very big part of our school. You know, when we were kids, a lot of my classmates made bands, so they all had instruments and they carried home their instruments, and you know, they were kind of the cool ones who made bands, talented ones. But there were programs that were offered, and there were after-school programs as well available to us. In junior high school, I went to 143, and at that point, I did make the orchestra, and I was a cello player for 2 years, which was a phenomenal experience. And it did help, you know, in a lot of different ways. For me, I want to mandate arts programs in our schools. I don't want to make it an option. I want to mandate them. And there's a million different types of arts programs that you can do aside from music. Extremely important. I want to increase funding for arts and after-school programs. And also, and very important to me, expand the arts in pre-K programs. You know, get our kids from a very young age interested in the arts and maybe even playing instruments or such at 3, 4, 5 years of age. So for me, extremely important. And as far as, you know, our artists right now and student teachers, we have a big opportunity right now to help them out with employment while expanding this program in public schools. And there are ways that we could subsidize it. Perhaps it's through grants. Perhaps, you know, if you have student teachers who went through the CUNY system, or expand something where we're writing off debt that they have from the CUNY system, or helping them out with their school program. There's ways to finance it. There's ways to do it. It's extremely important to me. And if I'm your council member, I'm certainly going to work on bringing arts back to our public schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next candidate is Eric Dinowitz. Hi. Can you take 30 seconds to give a quick snapshot of how you look, where you're at?
Sure. Well, first, I'm Councilmember Eric Dinowitz. I'm in a room that's painted yellow with looks like a blue plant pot, a blue bedspread. I'm wearing a navy jacket, navy shirt. So a lot of blue stuff going on. Got lightish skin, brown hair, blue eyes, and I'm use my hands a little too much, and I probably have a smile on my face.
Okay. All right. Healthcare is a pressing issue for individual artists. For individual artists, cultural workers, and small cultural groups without resources for major coverage plans. This impacts disabled artists, workers, and organizations enormously. In addition, many people are experiencing disabilities after suffering with COVID. And in communities hit hardest by COVID health, and in communities hardest hit by COVID health outlets are closing. For instance, in Brownsville and Brooklyn, there have been a recent closure announcement of a longstanding family and women's health clinic. What is your plan to address the healthcare needs of the city's many communities?
Thank you. Before I was a council member, one of the things I did, I was a musician. It wasn't my full-time job, but it certainly was a full-time job for a lot of my friends who struggle with healthcare. And I believe that the state needs to pass the New York Health Act to ensure that every person has access to healthcare, good quality healthcare. Not to mention that as council member, we are going to be bringing vaccines, multiple vaccine sites and mobile vaccination units to the community to help inoculate us against COVID and bring herd immunity to the Bronx, many communities of color, some of the hardest hit communities. But it's not just providing healthcare. Now, before I was council member Dinowitz, I was Mr. Dinowitz. I was a public school special education teacher. And I taught in schools like Bronx Theater High School and the Bronx School of Music. When I taught at Bronx Theater, I taught environmental science, and I would bring students to the garden, the school garden. And we weren't shackled by a high stakes test at the end of the year. We would grow fruits and vegetables. And I remember, you don't forget this. I would take a tomato off the vine, I would eat it. At first, a lot of the kids would freak out. Then they would slowly start saying, wait a second, I get where my food comes from. And they would take a bite, reluctantly at first, and they would start making this connection between where their food comes from, their bodies, their health. And students would go from eating Doritos and Pepsi for breakfast to eating fruits and vegetables. So education is another key component of what we are doing for the health of our communities, providing that universal health care and providing education and healthy lifestyles and habits for our children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Fernando Aquino. Are you here? You're here. You're muted. You just muted again.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Can you give a brief description, 30 seconds, about who you are, how you look like, where you're at? Just 30 seconds.
Yes, my name is Fernando Aquino. I'm an immigrant. I was born in the Dominican Republic. Now I'm a Dominican New Yorker. I am in my office, my home office. This is where I teach. I teach at Lehman College, and which is next to my kitchen. I cook a lot. And that painting out there is for my son, which is an artist. He did that in high school. And that symbol, but it also reminded me a lot of my days in the student movement in the Dominican Republic, and I keep it here close to me ever since. So that's why I'm wearing this because I've been back to back to interviews and forums today. So this will be like my uniform
Wow. Great, thank you. All right, so as of March 2021, just 4% of shuttered creative businesses has returned to normal operations. The federal relief offered by the Shuttered Venue Operators grants will only help an estimated 10% of the creative community economy. Micro businesses, for example, sole proprietor artists or small artist-led organizations are particularly vulnerable. This is a huge loss for our city's economy, where the creative sector generates 110 billion in economic activity. Arts and culture have led recoveries in the past, enlivening the hollowed out industrial neighborhoods in the 70s and bringing people back downtown after 9/11. What do you foresee is the role of creative economies in supporting economic recovery in New York City, particularly for communities most affected by environmental, housing, and health instability due to COVID, including our aging immigrants and working class communities of color?
When we think about inequality, we often think about housing and healthcare and those issues, and we almost never think about art. Well, art is a victim of inequalities. Our communities do not have access to the resources that other communities have. I'm talking about the brown and Black communities. And then we need to start there because this is not just about money, it's about priorities. For example, we have seen that the New York City government is now, every time there's a crisis, they go and cut the arts program. So we need to make sure that the city prioritize art and cultural work as a vital part of the city, not only because it produces those dollars, but also because it's an essential part for a healthy city. So I think we need to invest more in educational art programs for schools and particularly schools for the communities that I seek to represent here in the Bronx. We don't have the same access to resources and art program that other communities have. So my priority will be to seek more investment in the areas that are underrepresented when it comes to city money to promote art and art culture.
Thank you. So we have a follow-up question from Carla. Oh, I don't want to mess up your name. Prech. Carla, she's the executive director of Bronx Children's Museum. And the question is, what do you need from Bronx cultural organizations in order to become a vocal and impactful advocate? And we'll go with Dan first.
I'm sorry, Amira.
It's okay. Do you need the question again, or you're good?
I do, if you can. I stepped away for a moment. You want the question? Yes.
Yes. So the question is, what do you need from Bronx cultural organizations in order to become a vocal and impactful advocate?
Their needs, number one, kind of, like everything else, you're assessing every issue that we assess. And, I've been on the local community board for about 12 years. The first thing you need is information. And you have to identify what the problem is. And every organization is going to have different needs. Once you identify the needs, what you do is you start looking towards solutions and you start having a real discussion, with the organization to see what could possibly work. In many instances, what they really need is money. So how can we get the money? Is it in the form of grants? Is it in the form of, limiting their expenses or taking away some of their expenses through, maybe it's a property tax, maybe it's a water discount, some way that the city can help with that, or perhaps it's connecting them with different foundations. So what do we need? We need an ongoing discussion to see what their needs are and to see what solutions that we can keep ongoing. And what we really need is support within the community. So if what elected officials want to see is that this is a program that really serves the community. So I think that's something that we really need to see as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mino?
Yes, Amino. Can't.
Okay. Are you able to turn on your video?
Let me see. Here it is.
Okay. Awesome, you're here. Okay, did you hear the question? Should I repeat it?
I did. So what do
Awesome.
I need to be an advocate for Bronx arts organizations?
Yes.
I don't need much because I am an advocate for Bronx arts organizations is number one. But one thing that is very important and I will be doing as councilwoman is having scheduling ongoing meetings. So I would love to, I know DreamYard is here and Bronx Arts Council and Bronx Museum and Bronx Children's Museum that hopefully will open soon and other amazing organizations. I will want to have scheduled time where we meet, and these meetings should be not in our office, not in my office, but let's host them at these different centers. So as I'm there, as we are all there discussing what are the issues right now, what is happening, I hope to chair the Arts and Culture Committee and Libraries in City Council. So advocating also on that behalf for DCLA and what do we need, and the Create NYC, which would really impact arts organizations in the Bronx, because it's really about making sure that arts funding for the city is more equitable, is more accessible, and goes to our Black and Brown communities and our boroughs. And the Bronx should be leading in that, and I will be an advocate for that. So having scheduled meetings and making sure that we're rotating those so that at the same time I'm getting to know more your staff, your artists, and your centers.
Got it. Thank you. Fernando, you're next.
I'm trying to
Unmute yourself.
my video. And I
Can we
can't
help him?
with the video. I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, I'm saying. Let me see.
Okay.
Oh, you're here. Okay.
I'm not.
Do you need the question or you're?
No, I think we need to. I think we need to work on that bridge between those institutions and emerging communities. We are sharing the space with a lot of new Americans and new communities coming from the Caribbean, coming from Africa, coming from Mexico, coming from other places that I don't think have the line of communication that they need with these institutions. And I plan to be a conduit for that communication. And I think that will be essential because diversity is supposed to be an asset for the city. And I think art is one of the best ways to galvanize that asset. So I think we need to open the lines of communications with every community. That's what I think we should do.
Yeah, thank you. Next, Eric. Councilman Dinwiddie? Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
The question was what I need from the arts institutions?
Yes.
Okay. You know, when I taught at the arts schools, when I toured the country as a musician, the incredible power of the arts to bring people together was something that you were unable to measure. And I say it like that because as a teacher, teachers or politicians try to measure things with the test scores and everything, but the power of music and arts to bring people together and the types of conversations I want to have with the arts organizations is how not just we support the artists, but how we support artists and the arts organizations as being integral parts of our community and support that bringing people together. And one of the things I see as part of that is in budgeting. And what supports and money do you need in order to perform the concerts in the park, in order to build the space you need? And in my conversation with unions like the local 802 who endorsed me in this race, also, talking about what kind of space you need. What rehearsal space can we actually build? What performance space can we build here in the Bronx? Because we don't really have the same space that they do in other parts of the city. So working together to identify the needs and the locations and how we can all work together to bring our community together.
Got it. Thank you. And Abigail.
Hi, I'm trying to It says the host stopped my video.
Oh, no.
Okay, start my video. Okay, there we go. Great. So the Bronx artist community is such an incredible and vibrant community. I actually had the opportunity when I was in my early 30s and late 20s before kids to spend a lot of time with local Bronx artists because my husband founded the company Mainland Media, which is an organization that lifts up Bronx artists. They make Bronx souvenirs and they help promote Bronx artists. And so I spent a lot of time down on Bruckner Boulevard in all of these awesome loft spaces with artists who are creating t-shirts and all sorts of different modalities. It was really awesome. So I love this community and I'm completely dedicated to lifting it up. And I think what I would need from this community as your council member would be information for sure, an open door policy, open communication, relationship building, and a willingness to build coalitions with each other. I think that that's there, but I think it can be even stronger because we're all stronger when we're together. And this community in the Bronx is so incredible that if we sort of feed off of that together, I think we can continue to lift up the arts and the culture and drive a lot of our economic recovery.
Thank you. Eves, actually, Eves. Come on down.
Hold on one moment.
Okay.
And before I get on, could you repeat the question?
Sure. The question is, what do you need from Bronx cultural organizations in order to become a vocal and impactful advocate? So, I mean, Althea, you're here already? And then I guess we'll go with Eves because, yeah.
Still having difficulty.
I think they unmuted, they did my.
Oh, they did? They got switched? Okay, no problem. Just run with it.
Very strange. Well, for me, I think it's a lot of things what everyone already said. I think it's a partnership, right? I do believe that the arts is very important and instrumental in everything that we do and should be infused in a lot of things that we do. So having partnerships with cultural institutions is very important, making sure that they're funded, making sure that we're uplifting them in the proper spaces. And also, like I had said before, making sure that we are also finding a way to have art available to everyone, not to just young people, but also seniors and things like that, and making sure that it's accessible. And so for me, I think it would be about how do we create an actual real life partnership and having meetings regularly, having working groups to make sure that we have proper programming and having it accessible for whoever wants it. So really having true, meaningful open partnerships is something that I think is going to be very important for the arts programs.
Thank you. Now, Eves. Try this again.
Work with me now.
All right. I know. Let's do this. We can do it.
All right, here we go.
Here. Okay.
Awesome. So basically, I feel that we have to work hand in hand with our institutions that help, foster and nurture our children and our youth. Providing great funding for our arts institutions is a goal. My community in particular, when the arts program was cut in the 70s, it wasn't the parents, it was the students that came out and created something, created a movement. And instilling that type of knowledge and vigor into our kids is a goal. And I'm a history buff. I want to remind our folks that the path that we're walking has been created by those that are behind us. And that's, again, about retrofying our community, retrofitting our infrastructure, our rectifying the past ills, highlighting those people that paved the way for us. And that means, giving funding, to institutions, as well as working with developers that want to build and want to come into our community, ensuring that when they build, to incorporate community space, for our neighbors, by and ensuring that we have civic groups that are properly funded, encouraging our neighbors to create civic groups and giving them the institutional knowledge to create and sustain, being here to promote, what they're creating on every block. Like, that is the goal. The goal is to create and sustain.
Thank you. Brian, I want to call up my co-moderator. So Brian, if you can come up. Awesome.
Hello, Amira. Thank you. This will be, I believe, our last question of the evening. And so the question is, so the Bronx, as you all know, the Bronx is home to many individual artists, and many of them are currently suffering from high unemployment. How can we get relief to them? That is basically the question. So we're going to start off with Eric Dinowitz.
My apologies. I'm having a little technical difficulty.
No problem.
And by technical difficulties, I mean my twins came home. Can you please repeat the question?
No problem. No problem.
Thanks.
Are the twins okay now?
Oh no, they're fine. They're just they're fine.
Great.
Thank you for asking.
So as you know, the Bronx is home to many individual artists, and many of them are suffering currently from high unemployment. How can we get relief to them?
How can we get? I'm sorry.
How can we get relief to them?
Well, I think one of the important things is that we have to get people back to work, right? We have great things in place to like the eviction moratorium to help keep people in their homes. And in fact, the first piece of legislation that I sponsored in the council was the right to counsel, which provides people free legal services if they're facing eviction. But we have to get people back to work. Before we do that, we have to get people vaccinated. And so as I mentioned earlier, we're bringing vaccine sites to District 11, mobile vaccination sites, and vaccines for homebound individuals. I also voted in legislation that makes permanent the Open Streets program, which provided a space for so many artists to thrive and flourish during this pandemic. But the reason the vaccines are so important is because that allows our theaters and our spaces to reopen. Additionally, I'm committed to funding arts programs, which those programs in turn provide money to the very artists who need that support during this very, very trying time. And during this very trying time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, Mina Laura, are you still here?
I am.
Great.
I'll wait till they pop up. There it is, so I can start my video. Thanks, Brian.
Hi.
Hello. So how do we give relief to our artists? Yes, first we need to make sure that we are investing in our arts and culture sector safely so that we can go back to work. We are yearning to go back to work. And we need to make sure that whether it's teaching artists, whether it's on the stage, we're able to do that safely. But as that happens, because for some of these, it's going to be slower. Teaching artists may be in rooms sooner, but some performing artists and venues, it's going to take more time. So I think we need to be giving rent relief to those who need it. For our undocumented artists and our undocumented New Yorkers, we need to make sure, thanks to the state legislators, we passed the Excluded Workers Fund. One thing that we need to do is make sure that our undocumented essential workers and artists know that this is there and that they can apply. So we're working with cultural institutions who work with these communities and community-based organizations so that they get this relief. Up to $14,000 they could receive, which will be essential for some of their needs to support their children. And then something else that artists need for relief is we need to make sure that for many of us who are artists and have families, that we have childcare, that we have schools open, because we can't go back to work if we don't have our kids, a place for our kids to be safe. So it's essential that we're thinking about our artistic community and gig workers. Many in the arts community are gig workers. We are providing universal childcare and fighting for universal childcare. It's something that I'll be pushing as council member, as well as after school day should be extended. And then finally, there are bills right now that are in committees that city council won't put up for a hearing, which is to expand workers' rights for gig workers, sick days. COVID is here and it's slowly leaving, but this is something we will have as a community. And if you're a freelance teaching artist or freelance artist who's working in this show now and that show later, and you need to be home because you or your family member is sick, you need to make sure that you'll get paid. It doesn't matter if you're a 1099 or a W-2. So that's something else around legislation where we can get relief for artists.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Fernando. Hello.
Well, the state just did a wonderful thing with creating a fund for undocumented workers who lost their jobs during the pandemic. I think we should do that in the city with artists who lost their gig during the pandemic. I think we must allocate increased funding for arts councils to ensure more independent, the more independent artists get more work. The city needs to invest in wage transparency also, because that's another area in which I know artists are suffering. Um, it is heartbreaking, and my son is an artist, but he also have a job, and I know that he will love to be just doing his art. So it's really difficult. So for something that's producing so much wealth and benefits for the city, I think that the city must prioritize this sector and do the appropriate investment by making sure that they are getting a good salary, that they're getting health care, that artists are getting proper nutrition, they are getting help with the rent, etc. So I think it is a matter of prioritizing this sector of the city that is so vital for us, which we are not doing right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Althea, are you still here? Hi.
Hi. Yes, I agree with a lot of folks. Things has already been said, but yes, we have to get artists back to work. I think that we can definitely use this nice weather that's starting to happen now and open streets and things like that to host fairs so that artists can be out in the summer performing, make sure that, we're taking away some of the red tape for them to get permits and things like that. So we can really open these things up, having art classes outside. I think that we really need to really think about how we are getting people back to work, also creating things like grants for artists and things like that, so we can be using this time so they can be creative during this time that we're here. I think that there's a lot of things that we could be doing to support artists right now, in addition to while we're waiting for things to open back up and get back to normal. But we still know that we have some time. So I think, like I said, one of the things is, using open streets and having more performances outside, and, creating some art grants so that we can start offering artists some grants so that they can use this time while we're still in isolation to work on their craft.
Thank you so much. And Abigail.
All right, it worked.
Hello.
Great. Hi. I agree with so much of what has already been said. I think that it's so important to get our artists working and every community in this city working. And the one thing that hasn't been said is, I really think as we're rebuilding, we need to start having conversations around strengthening our families, our working New Yorkers against future crises. We have the climate crises are around the corner. We often have weather-related issues. Who knows when there's going to be another pandemic? So it's not just about doing all the things that we've all discussed to get us back to work, but it's also about how can we ensure that we're strengthening our New Yorkers so that going forward, if we have to weather a big storm, we can do that. And a lot of that revolves around affordable housing and addressing the affordable housing crisis, because when you're rent burdened, everything else suffers. So that has to be one of the top priorities. We have to focus on the economic recovery from COVID, supporting our small businesses, as I mentioned earlier. Absolutely, vaccines, and also ensuring that our future generation, it's not just about educating our children and making sure that they have an equitable and high quality education, but also we need to fund our youth. Our youth turn into our artists and those that are in culture, So let us ensure that we're expanding summer youth employment program and empowering youth and allowing them to fulfill their potential, not only within school, but outside of school as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Dan. think you're still on mute, Dan.
Sorry, I lost internet momentarily there. Optimum let me down.
Yeah.
So the question was, how do we get folks back to work?
Well, yeah, because individual artists are suffering from high unemployment. So how do we get to
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what they're the entertainment industry and the restaurant industry were the hardest hit with COVID and everything shutting down. So we need to get folks back to work. The artists and the entertainment industry is part of it. It's going to be a key to getting New York back. What's wonderful about New York are our art institutions, the entertainment industry, going out to the various restaurants across the boroughs. And that's what drive people, to want to be in New York and come visit New York. So what can we do? And again, I think some of the statistics were pretty rare as far as the federal relief program. There's very little going to some of the industries. I think the number is like 10% or something like that. So we need, as a city, to subsidize the industry. We need to make sure that artists have a place to live as well. I'm a firm supporter of arts and residency programs where they could do student teaching. I have a friend of mine, she does one over in East Bronx. It's a phenomenal place where they do a gap year for dancers. Again, arts and residency projects. And we have the space. With all of this commercial space available right now, we have a huge opportunity to do a multitude of different things. One, we could turn it into affordable housing in many different ways. In others, we could take that and create art programs. We can create loft space. We can create space for artists throughout the city of New York. And as a council member, that's what I'm going to want to do. I'm going to make the connections there. I'm going to try to subsidize it to the best of my ability through public-private partnerships and get everyone back to work, because within the industries, and I know many entertainers do work in the restaurant industry as well, to subsidize, their craft.
Thank you. Thank you. Eves.
Thank you for the question. Honestly, just giving these artists an opportunity. Thankfully, my district is one of the forefronts of birthplace of hip hop. I want to implement, with using my environmental approach on expanding Hip Hop Boulevard, capping it and turning it into a walking esplanade, but a growing esplanade. But that has to have with our artists' support, designing it. We want our leaders of today to design and look in the future and say, hey, I helped on this project to create something. We do have housing for our artists here with the Andrew Friedman Home, but we want to implement more of that. Thinking outside the box, because not every type of housing is housing for us in the South Bronx. We need affordable housing, but we need realistic livable wage for us to continue to sustain here. And by giving our artists, the opportunity to be teachers, to live in the district, and then to design an area, within our district is key and is a goal, and would bring folks from all across our community to not only just stay and invest here, but to grow here. And that is the goal. Our goal is to sustain. So pushing funding to create more housing, to keep our artists here, but giving them the opportunity to have private public partnerships, with organizations like the Botanical Garden, the Bronx Museum that's within the district, continue giving them funding so they could think outside the box and hire local, is the key and the goal.
Cool. Thank you so much, Eves. Well, that wraps up our questions for this evening. I'll pass it over to Yours for Arts and Culture, who's not sure who's speaking next. Lucy?
Thanks so much. I'm Lucy Sexton, New Yorkers for Culture and Arts. Pale skin, dark glasses, short brown hair, dark shirt on. Thank you so much to our moderators, Brian Glover of Bronx Council on the Arts and Amir Mustafa of Art Defined. Thanks to all of the candidates who came and shared their really, really thoughtful answers to our questions. We really appreciate it. All of our Bronx cultural partners that helped us put this on and spread the word. You can also spread the video of this. So if you want to post the video of it for folks who maybe didn't get to watch it live, live. I'll put that link in the chat. It's right on our website. You can just click on the YouTube link and go and watch any of our candidate forums. We're about halfway through. We have another Manhattan City Council candidate forum coming up next Tuesday. Please find out about ranked choice voting. Stay involved. Thanks so much to my New Yorkers for Culture and Arts teams, Melanie Green, Lori Berg, Tara Sheena, Regine Peters, who has been producing this whole event. Really lovely. Everyone stay safe, be well, and vote. Vote for culture. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Mila.
Right.
Thank you all.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Take care. Oh, we're going to go out with some music too. More music from two Bronx artists, La Rocca and DJ KS 360, legends of hip hop, Quick Step and Rock.